Yo, yo, yo. All right. So we're diving into it. We're starting a new series. We're going to do a weekly live show, just talking all things quarterbacks. Today we're talking about the SEC quarterbacks. And the SEC is a league that has a lot of their top quarterbacks returning, right? A lot of the top teams have guys turning from Jalen Milroe, Carson Beck, Quinn Ewers now with Texas entering the league, Brady Cook, Jackson Dart. Like a lot of the top teams in the SEC have their quarterbacks returning. So today I want to talk about a little something different. I want to talk about several of the new quarterbacks that are starting, from some of the transfer portal guys to just guys who are going to be taking over this year, right? So we got 5 or 6 guys we want to dive into and talk maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes over each guy and talk about what we want to see from them in 2024, talk about what we want to see from them during camp and during the offseason, and then what we expect them to accomplish this next season. If this is your first time tuning in the channel, we thank you. This is the Big Quarterback Hub. We talk all things quarterback. So we'll be doing a weekly show during the offseason. So if this is your type of content, please consider subscribing, like the video, share, all that stuff. It really, really does help. And outside of this, these live shows we'll be doing, we'll also have our normal content where we put out interviews with quarterbacks, film breakdowns, all that fun stuff. So with that said, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's go ahead and talk about Tennessee quarterback Nico Iamaleava. I've been practicing the last name, so hopefully I got it right. But Nico may be the most talked about quarterback, new starting quarterback during the offseason. He's definitely one of the most hyped up quarterbacks. And so I think it's natural for people to put a lot of expectation on him, a lot of pressure added onto his back. I think it's very natural. So if we want to take it and look at it from an elementary level, I just want to talk about what do we truly want to see from Nico? What would be a successful 2024 season? Well, I think it starts in spring ball. I think it starts what do we want to see from him right now, and then what can he build on top of that? I think number one, and this may be a similar answer for a lot of these quarterbacks on the list, but number one, we want to see Nico take control of the team, offense and defense, right? We want to see his leadership take over. Now, that could look like vocal leadership. That could look like his leadership on the field, probably a little bit of both, right? But you want to see him take control of the team. You want to see his teammates look at him and know, okay, he's our guy. This is his first year being the guy. Like last year, I think he was in camp early, but regardless, during the practices, during most of game prep, he was always the backup. So now he's trying to, be the guy during not just the games coming up, but he's taken on that role where he is now the guy during practice, during the offseason workouts, like during camp. And this is something that we can talk about for several of these quarterbacks. But I'm sorry, not during camp, but before camp, like during the offseason, coaches only have a certain amount of time they can be with you, right? And so I guarantee, even though he's now getting his receivers, he's now in pads throwing during spring ball, but they were running routes with each other during the offseason. And what coaches will do, at least with us in college, they would get in the press box, they would give us a script to go through, whether it's the route tree, whether it's, hey, we're focusing on in routes, 2-minute drill, out routes, whatever it might be, and then they watch you go through the routes. So even though it wasn't technically mandatory practice, like those type of practices, they're still getting a lot of reps in with their skill players, right? So now you want to see that just transition to taking control of the whole team, right? And number two, I want to see connection with his wideouts. Now, I know what McCoy's hurt, right? Rehabbing an ankle. And you got White coming back, who's probably going to be your go-to guy. But you want to develop a relationship, develop a rapport with other guys. You want to see what other receivers kind of step up. You want to see what other receivers are able to maybe have a connection with Nico. I think now is the time to do it. Just like we talked about a minute ago, where they are getting on the same page, running the route tree. Now you're in camp. Eventually summer's coming up. You want to continue to do that and just get more and more reps, more and more experience. So I think that's kind of the main thing you want to see during this time now. You want to establish that rapport with your receivers. I think White's got the speed to take the top off the defense. I think he is a great receiver to lean on. But who else can you develop? Who else can Nico kind of connect with to help him be the guy, right? And number three, what I want to see during camp and what I think can really transition is getting the ball out quick. Just run the offense efficiently. How do you get the ball out quick? We got to understand the offense. You got to be able to read the defense. And that was something I think we saw in the bowl game, maybe struggled at times, right? Like I thought Nico played good in the bowl game. I thought he flashed against a pretty good Iowa defense. But it wasn't like he threw for 800. That's a pretty extreme example. It's not like he threw for 300 yards and 5 touchdowns throwing, right? I think he accounted for 178 yards of total offense improvement. Now, I put out a video about Nico, and we talked about the 6 sacks they took, and Tennessee fans were quick to remind me that yeah, but the offense, there are some offense linemen out, and I get it, but at the same time, the ball has to come out quickly. You don't want to take 6 sacks. So there's obviously room for improvement. But with that said, I mean, the sky is the limit in my mind for Nico. He can make every throw. That's not even something we really talk about. He makes every throw. The athletic ability is there to escape pressure and also to be featured in the run game. We saw that against Iowa. I think all of his touchdowns came running the ball, if I'm not mistaken, right? So you saw that athletic ability. And so now I think the biggest thing that you just want to see in camp and you want to see progress is just run that offense efficiently, get the ball out quickly. Like Hendon Hooker, in my mind, ran that offense perfectly. I know Joe Milton had the cannon, but you have to be an accurate quarterback and get the ball out quickly. Get the ball to your receivers in space. Like a lot of these throws that Tennessee has, these like quick screen games, these kind of option screen games are either taking that quick throw or maybe there's a slant route going behind them. So I think now in spring ball is that perfect time to get that experience, right? So to kind of wrap up Nico and what you want to see from him during spring before you progress to 2024 is take control of the team, build connection with your wideouts, and get the ball out quick and just run the offense. Go through your progressions, get comfortable with the speed of the offense because you're going so non-stop. Then once the season rolls around, I think it was good that Nico got his feet wet. Nico got his feet wet in the bowl game, and he played some spare change, had some spare time, time that he played when Milton was a starting quarterback this year. But now that you're the guy, and now that you have this experience, like I think you have your feet wet, you have some experience. I think you should be able to roll into 2024. What does it look like for Nico to live up to expectations? I don't think he has to have a Heisman season this year. I think if he has a good season, a solid season, but still has room to improve, that's a successful season. Now, sure, he could go out and light on fire and be all world. That's absolutely a possibility. But if I'm a Tennessee fan, if I'm a SEC fan, just keeping up with quarterbacks in general, a successful season is being more accurate than Milton, pushing the ball downfield a bit more than Milton. But you don't have to have like a Hendon Hooker type season where you had 31 touchdowns with 3 picks, right? So I think there's a lot of room for improvement for Nico. But at the same time, I think expectation-wise, I think you have to put fair expectations. So Tennessee fans, if you're watching this video, let me know what you think about Nico. What's your expectation for the season in 2024? Now Tennessee's schedule is not nearly as tough as Oklahoma's and Florida's, right? Like those are some pretty tough schedules. We're going to talk about Oklahoma in a second with Jackson Dart. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below because I think he actually could have a favorable schedule compared to other SEC teams. Again, Nico, one of the most hyped up quarterbacks this offseason, and rightfully so. The $8 million guy, and depending who or what recruiting website you kind of subscribe to, he was a number 1 or number 2 quarterback in his quarterback class. All right, so let's move on to Jackson Arnold, Oklahoma quarterback, a quarterback that personally, if I'm just being honest, he's one of my most. He's one of the quarterbacks I'm most looking forward to watching. Jackson Arnold, from Oklahoma. Probably one of my top 2 or 3 quarterbacks who's starting for the first time. I'm really looking forward to watching. And we've talked about Jackson Arnold on the channel before, but this spring practice has been labeled the most important spring ball in OU history. That's a lot of pressure to put on a kid, right? That's a lot of pressure to put on your new starting quarterback. But I think it's fair for them to say that. Right? Like spring ball is starting and you're ending the SEC and you've got one of the toughest schedules in all of college football. I think your win total is 7.5. At least that's what it opened up with, depending on what it got bet with. So I think it's definitely fair to put that. But with Jackson Arnold, let's talk about him because the talent is off the charts. If you keep up with recruiting, he's one of the most highly recruited quarterbacks coming out of his class. And I think we saw that talent on display in Arizona. Like we talked about with Nico, Jackson got his feet wet this past season. He had the bowl game start, which he was able to be the starting quarterback. He was able to prepare as a starter, which I think is an underrated kind of experience that you have to go through as a quarterback. Then he got thrown to the game against BYU when Dylan Gabriel got hurt. So you got some valuable playing time, some really valuable minutes playing for Oklahoma. And even though there were ups and downs in the game against Arizona, the bowl game, his talent was on display. The arm strength was on display. He had 2 touchdowns passing, 3 interceptions, 38 yards on the ground, 361 yards passing. So you saw the freshman mistakes with the interceptions, but I think the talent flashed all around, right? So I love that his feet are wet. I love that he's going into the season already playing some big games because they got some big games coming up. And we did a video breakdown talking about the schedule for Oklahoma. I would encourage you to go back and watch it because that schedule is pretty tough. All right, so with that said, what do you want to see from Arnold? Well, there's 3 things I want to see from Arnold during the offseason that I think will help lead to success during the season. Number one, take control of the team from a leadership perspective. We talked about how tough their schedule is. So be it, right? But take control of the team. For Oklahoma to have a successful season, if they win 9 or 10 games, I think that's overperforming, at least by what the market's saying. I think Arnold would have to play a big role. I know Oklahoma fans are high on their defense, and I get it, but I think Arnold's going to have to play a really good football to get that win total, right? But take control of the team. Develop in the offense and learn what Latrell wants you to do, right? Connect with the receivers, build that connection, just like we talked about with Nico. And now you're getting experience being the guy. I think you have experience being the guy during the spring camp. So once the real season rolls into it, there's already some experience. Like, he's not going through a competition like some of these other new quarterbacks. I don't know if they're even using the word competition, but he is not having to fight for this job. This is his job. So he's able to prepare like that, which I think can be important. And I want to talk about Latrell. Before we move on, I do want to talk about Latrell because his offense is, I don't know if unknown is the right word. He hasn't been a play caller in a few years, right? He was at UNT, and UNT had some really good offenses. Mason Fine, their old starting quarterback, one of my favorite quarterbacks to watch in Conference USA, put up record numbers. And the offense was always ran successfully, but could never finish it. The team was never great, right? So as a head coach, Latrell didn't accomplish what he wanted to essentially accomplish. But now that you're the OC and you don't have to worry about other stuff, I think Latrell could really flourish in this offense or Oklahoma, especially with a quarterback like Jackson Arnold, right? Offensively at UNT, QB Mason Fine, we talked about, put up some big numbers, right? Then Latrell was fired, analyst for OU, and now he's the guy. So why do I think this relationship is going to work, or why do I think this could work with Arnold? Well, number one, Arnold has a ton of talent. Number two, he already has a relationship with Jackson Arnold. He understands the players. He understands kind of what his strengths are already. And if we look at what the offense did when Latrell was the play caller for Mason Fine, 3.5 years as a starter, Fine put up 12,505 yards passing, 93 passing touchdowns, 34 picks, 62 completion percentage, 7.6 yards per attempt. So I think Latrell uses the pass game almost as an extension of the run. If you go back and watch when he's calling plays, he gets the ball out quick to set up the deeper throws. I think now that you have a quarterback like Jackson Arnold, I think those yards per attempt, I think the deep shots, I think spreading the ball out, I think pushing the ball downfield can be a lot higher than what it was with Fine at UNT. Because Fine was a good quarterback, but he doesn't have the arm strength or the talent that Arnold has now. So I think Latrell's offense could expand and could definitely, take the next step as an offensive play caller because you have a quarterback like Jackson Arnold. And if we look at Dylan Gabriel's numbers last year in 2023, to me, it was a career year for several reasons. It was the highest yards per attempt he had and the highest yards on the ground as a rusher, right? So his yards in total with 3,660 yards passing, 30 touchdowns in the air, 6 interceptions, 9.5 yards per attempt, which was again his highest of his career by far, 373 yards on the ground, and that was also his highest, right? So I wouldn't be surprised to see Latrell feature Arnold's luck some. Now, I don't think you're going to want to build your offense on Arnold run the ball by any means. You don't want him to take those hits. But I wouldn't be surprised to see him featured as a runner when you need it, right? That's one of Arnold's strengths. It's his ability to move in the pocket, his ability to buy time, his ability to use his athleticism to set up kind of unorthodox throws. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Latrell use that for Arnold. But I think they're a good fit. I think they're a good mesh. I think there's a chance that Nico or Arnold could be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC or the best, right? Like, yeah, you have Carson Beck. Yeah, you have Quinn Ewers, who are probably the top two, Brady Cook, Jalen Milroe. But there's no reason one of these guys can't come on the scene and really explode and have a fantastic season, right? No, I'm not saying it's going to happen. You got a very tough schedule, but there's a pathway there. If Oklahoma has a really successful season, I think it's because of Jackson Arnold. That may be dumb in saying. I know Oklahoma fans are really high on their defense, and I get it, but still quarterbacks will drive success. So Oklahoma fans, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Arnold? What do you want to see from him? How do you want to see him develop? I think he has a good season ahead of him. I really, really do, even with this tough schedule. But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. All right, let's get into LSU. Let's get into Garrett Nussmeier. First year as the starting quarterback who's been waiting his turn, quarterback who, if you talk to people last year, said, hey, he may even be giving Jane Daniels a push for the starting job, me included. I'm a big Garrett Nussmeier fan, and he's probably my favorite quarterback, or he's the quarterback I'm most looking forward to watching. And maybe I'm biased because I have some LSU blood in me, admittedly. But he's a quarterback I'm definitely looking forward to watching, because I think we've seen glimpses of his talent. Now I'm really excited to see, hey, when he's the guy for a full year, how is this going to look? So real quick, let's talk about Nussmeier. 11 touchdowns passing, 7 interceptions, only has had one start, and that was this past year against Wisconsin in the bowl game, right? So besides that start, he appeared in 4 games this freshman year. He appeared in 7 games this sophomore year, and then 6 games this past year. And not all those games are mop-up duty. Like the bowl game last year in 2022? Excuse me, I think it was against Purdue. Like, he was getting in fairly early. In the game against Georgia, the SEC championship in 2022, Daniels, he get hurt, he get banged up. I know Georgia was up by a good amount, but once they put Nussmeier in, he led a little comeback, and Georgia wasn't sweating per se, but they had to play some football to make sure they put LSU away. And so I think Nussmeier showed enough in these limited roles. So he's an experienced backup, even though he's only started 1 game. I think he's got a good amount of experience from playing. In the game against Wisconsin, the only game he started, he was 31 of 45, 395 yards in the air, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick, and a completion percentage for right under 69, 68.9. So I think now that he's able to step up and be QB1, it's kind of like every quarterback we're going to talk about, hey, leadership is big. You are now the guy. You are now building experience to be the guy. But I think he's had some experience. He's had some experience in big-time situations. Now he's having experience being the guy in practice, being the guy in the offseason, being the guy that everyone's looking up to. And he's shown his big ability, man. Like, he's really flashed. He's flashed plenty of times at LSU, and he's known for being that gunslinger. Like, he's definitely not going to be the runner that Jay Daniels was. No one's going to ask him to. Not many quarterbacks can run like Jay Daniels. But he's got a big arm. He can make throws that most quarterbacks wouldn't even try. So I think for LSU, they need him to be more consistent, right? You need him to be more consistent with that big play. So I think right now in spring, I think it's a good time for Nussmeier to work on his improvement areas, which I think come down to accuracy and turnovers. Now this may be a bit unfair because we have limited kind of limited games and limited reps, limited passes. But in the limited passes we have right now, we've seen the big playability, but we want to see a bit more accurate balls thrown. I think his completion percentage is just under 58.9 and has 7 interceptions and 219 career pass attempts. He's attempted 12 or more passes in just 7 games, right? So in 7 games, he's had an extended period of playing time. We'll call it 12 more passes. And he's thrown 7 interceptions in those 7 games. So that's not to say that he's a turnover machine by any means, but I think with the exposure we've seen, turnovers and accuracy is something that you want to work on. And he's had several drops. That's something that needs to be said too. He's had several drops when he's been playing, and someone mentioned that in a video I put out about him a few weeks ago. But I still think you want to see that improvement area in camp. You want to see accurate passes. You want to see him develop the new offense, and you want to see him avoid any turnovers, because LSU is going to be good next year. And if LSU's defense improves, then who knows what happens. But I imagine their offense continuing to be one of the better offenses in the SEC. You still have talented receivers to throw to. You still have talented guys. I think it comes down to the defense as far as how good LSU can be. But for Garrett Nussmeier, I think he has the ability to be one of the best quarterbacks in the SEC. I think the first 3 guys we're talking about, Nico, Jackson, and then Garrett, I think each of these guys has the potential to be a top 5 quarterback in this league. So the potential is there for Nussmeier. If he can limit those mistakes, the LSU offense should continue to put up big numbers. Again, we talked about him having experience for a backup, but now we're going to see like true experience being a starting guy. So I think within the first 4 or 5 games that LSU plays, we'll have a good idea of what type of season it could be for Nussmeier. But LSU fans, let me know your thoughts. 1, what are you expecting from Nussmeier? What do you want to see in 2024? And then 2, what do you think about his strengths, his improvement areas? Did I miss anything? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. All right, let's move on to another new starting quarterback in this league. And here's the first transfer quarterback we're going to talk about. And that's Taylen Green, Arkansas quarterback, former Boise State quarterback. And so far, he's had a good spring. They had their first scrimmage the other day, depending when you're watching this video, and it wasn't perfect. He had some big plays, but he was only 10 of 23 passing the ball. But he did have some big plays. That's kind of his MO at Boise. It was kind of the inconsistency, big plays, but not super consistent. But I think overall, and that's just a spring scrimmage you take with a grain of salt. Overall, you've read and seen good reports from Taylen Green. He's really established himself as the guy. If you go and look at Twitter, you go keep up with Arkansas accounts, you see him with offensive line, you see social media stuff. They're really featuring Taylen Green. So I think with Petrino's, can't talk, getting old. I think with Petrino's offense, I'm really excited to see how this meshes. So we've talked about Green before, but let's go ahead and just kind of recap it. He's from Texas, a high school kid, went to Louisville. So I'm from Texas, live in Texas, so that's definitely a biased spot there. But the past few seasons at Boise State, we've talked about, have been up and down. He's had 44 total touchdowns, 15 picks, 3,794 yards passing, and right over 1,000 yards rushing, 1,020 yards rushing. So he's a guy that can really use his legs, and he's got a big-time arm. He had a great 2022 season, and I really thought he was going to have a big 2023 season. That just wasn't the case. I thought he was going to be one of the best G5 quarterbacks in the league last year. It just didn't end up being the case. He ended up, losing his job for a little bit, and that quarterback got hurt. So then he got it back. He finished the year really, really strong. So I think Petrino has the ability to put quarterbacks in position to succeed. And what Green has shown in the past, I think could be a really good and creative fit for Petrino. I think also the ability of Green running the ball, I think, can protect Arkansas's offensive line. Now, I don't know if they've gotten, I don't know how that play has been, but if it's anything like last year, you're going to need to find ways to protect the offensive line, get the ball out quick, use a quarterback's legs. Green was only sacked 14 times the past 2 seasons combined. So I think Petrino can really use the threat of Green running the ball, the RPO schemes, getting the ball out quick to protect the offensive line, and the flashes that Green showed. That's what gets me going. The flashes that Taylen Green has shown the past few years, if Petrino can get him to consistently play at that level, if it's no longer a flash play, but it's a consistent play, then I think you have a shot I think Arkansas has a shot. Now, Arkansas has got a tough schedule. They're going to need a lot of things to fall their way to have success as a team. But I think offensively, I think Green can have a good season. The offense can have a good season, even if the team doesn't have a great season per se. There's a lot to be excited about. He showed the ability to push it downfield. 30 completions where the ball was thrown 20 yards or more in 2 seasons. That was starting for the majority of the time, but not the full time. So I think you trust Petrino putting Green in position to succeed. You trust Petrino knowing more about quarterback play than all of us know combined. If you're an Arkansas fan, you just kind of hang your hat on Petrino. You hang your hat on the potential that Taylen Green does have. Let's talk about 2 more quarterbacks. There's more quarterbacks that are starting for the first time than the quarterbacks we're talking about now. Excuse me. But let's go ahead and just finish with 2 quarterbacks. Let's go ahead and talk about South Carolina quarterback LaNorris Sellers. We put out a video talking about Sellers and talking about the competition with Robbie Ashford, but let's just spend a few minutes talking about LaNorris Sellers. If you talk to South Carolina fans who have some insight, who talk to guys in the building, they are super, super excited for him. And so that leads to the fan base being super, super excited, right? So just from the people I've talked to, I think I've already bought into the hype from the fans for South Carolina. So LaNorris Sellers, a lot of unknown. I think he threw 4 passes last year, right? I had 4 completions, and 2 of those completions were touchdowns. Had a 36-yard run. So minimal playing time, did not see a ton. But in high school, he did several things that Coach Beamer talked about what he wants to see in a starting quarterback. Now, Coach Beamer talked about taking care of the football. That's a huge importance for the quarterback at South Carolina. Just take care of the football, take care of the football. And LaNorris Sellers' senior year of high school, his 2022 senior year of high school, he had 45 passing touchdowns, only 2 picks. So in high school, he took care of the football. You're also going to see a lot of yards on the ground, too, from Sellers. I think he's a really good athlete. He played soccer in high school. I kind of like that. A lot of times you see quarterbacks play baseball, right? Basketball, too, right? You see being a distributor of the ball, or, being able to throw a baseball really hard, or being able to rotate really well in a baseball because they translate to throwing a football. So I kind of like seeing that he was a soccer player. That tells us he's a good athlete, change direction, can control his body, own the movement. So definitely a quarterback. There's a lot of unknown, but man, I think South Carolina fans are really, really excited about him. So fans, if you haven't seen him play, or go check out his highlight tape and let me know your thoughts about him in the comments below. All right, Mississippi State, new quarterback Blake Shapen. He's someone that we saw play a lot being at Baylor. And my biggest takeaway was, man, you want more out of him. But my thought was, is he struggling because it's on him, or is the Baylor system? Is the Baylor offense that's kind of handcuffing him? Is it Baylor that's holding him back? It was kind of hard to judge and understand that. But in 2 years of starting, he had 36 passing touchdowns, 13 picks, over 5,000 yards passing, 7.4 yards per attempt in 2 years and change starting. I think it was important. He got it in the portal early, which was important. He committed early to Mississippi State. So I think there's still a lot of positives for Shapen. He's got plenty of experience. 2 years and change starting, plenty of experience. I think new head coach Jeff Lebby, that's what you want in a quarterback. You want a quarterback that has experience. You want to know where's that floor, essentially. I don't think Shapen's floor is low. I don't know how high his ceiling is. I really don't. But he did show glimpses of being good. And like we talked about, did he struggle because of his own play or the Baylor system? Probably a little bit of both. But he showed glimpses of being good. He's a capable quarterback. He's a good athlete. He was a really good baseball player in high school, and he has plenty of experience. Let's talk about what he did well on and kind of why I think he can do well in Lebby's system. We'll talk about Lebby's system a little bit as well, too. All right, looking at Blake Shapen, he was much better off play action, right? More than half of his touchdowns were off play action. Only 32% of his dropbacks were on play action. So if I'm looking at this, if I'm seeing how much success he had on play action, if I'm Jeff Lebby and I use a ton of play action with Dillon Gabriel, like 50-something% of his passes were off play action, then I want to use play action with Blake Shapen. That tells me that he feels comfortable faking the ball and getting defenders out of position. That can really help a quarterback get comfortable. If a quarterback's struggling at times, a lot of times you have to find something different. So I think when Shapen struggled, it was from straight drops. It was from not having the use of play action. So Jeff Lebby's offense, what he did last year with Dillon Gabriel and what he's done in the past, they use play action. They use their run game more than probably people think, just because like the air raid system, but they want to get the run game going. So I think he can, even if the run game is not successful in Mississippi State, as long as you stay away from like 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12s, you can still use play action as a threat to get defenders out of position. I talked about his accuracy a little bit. He was more accurate than the numbers suggest. 10% of his passes were dropped from Baylor receivers. They weren't helping him out a bunch. So if you adjust that completion percentage, he had a 71 adjusted completion percentage rate, which is pretty good. So I think he's more accurate than the numbers suggest. And if you look at some of the old quarterbacks, or the older quarterbacks that Lebby's worked with, Mackenzie Milton, Dillon Gabriel, even Matt Corral, similar builds to Shapen, similar styles as far as being mobile. All the guys we mentioned are mobile, but not runners per se, not huge guys, but can distribute the ball. None of these guys had huge arms, right? Mackenzie Milton, Dillon Gabriel don't have huge arms, right? Matt Corral had the biggest arm. And they had enough mobility in their legs to be a threat. But I think if you look at these quarterbacks and then you look at Shapen, he's a similar mold and he fits to what Shapen wants stylistically. So places we want to improve on for Shapen, well, you want to take some deep shots. Again, I don't know if that was Baylor's offense or him, but you want to take some deep shots, get the vertical game to be more of a threat. It doesn't have to be the center of the offense. It doesn't have to be featured every single series, but he only had 28 completions over the little over 2 years starting, where the ball was thrown 20 yards or more in the air. You want that to be a little higher. Like the number one quarterback in the Big 12 last year, Baylor's league that they were in, that had for this category where the ball was thrown 20 yards or more downfield in the air, was West Virginia quarterback Garrett Green. He had 32, right? So you just want to see more shots downfield to open up the offense. I think that's what Lebby's going to do. I think that's what Lebby wants to do. He wants to develop that, right? So I think the fact that Lebby's had experience with Milton, experience, under Heupel, experience under Kiffin, multiple roles. Now he's the head coach. He has his guy. He's able to pick Blake Shapen. Maybe there's a chance they surprise some people this year. Maybe there's a chance, right? So you definitely have to stay open for Shapen to not be a finished product yet. And when you combine him with the better offensive play call than what he's had in the past, then maybe there's some success for Blake Shapen. But regardless, a lot of fun, exciting quarterback topics within the SEC. I think these 5 or 6 quarterbacks we talked about really stick out to me. I know you have Diego Pavia for Vanderbilt. You have Brock Vandergrift, who I'm excited about, the Kentucky quarterback, former Georgia quarterback. I probably should have spent some time talking about Brock, but he could end up being one of the better quarterbacks too, right? There's definitely a possibility, but all these guys we talked about, all exciting young guys, especially Jackson Arnold and Nico Iamaleava. I think those two guys may be the most exciting young quarterbacks in all of college football. And then Garrett Nussmeier. He's going to have a lot of eyes on him as well, and as we talked about. The other guys, I think Taylen Green, I think Blake Shapen, I think they're kind of wild cards. I think potential is there. Flashes have shown, but now can you do it consistently? So that's all we got for today, right? We talked about SEC quarterbacks. We're going to do this on a weekly basis. We'll do these live shows. And, if you have any specific content that you want, please let us know. Again, any quarterback content or any quarterback topic is fair game here. So thank you for watching. Again, like, share, and subscribe. It really does help. Comment below if you got any comments. We'll see you next time. Peace.